Say packet. Remember your timeline of events and your weekly syllabus that you got back on Monday has it would be for next Friday, a week from today, the 20th. You have a rough draft, and that would be a in-class paper copy rough draft, not something that you would just have, on Google Docs or whatever. And then by the following Friday, the 27th, is when you'll be submitting your formal final copy. Remember, you are going to get a rubric for it. I'll give it to you next week. So this is not an AP 7 plus 9 minus 2 minus scale. It's totally different from it. The format's going to be completely different with how the college essay works. So the plan is today, not tomorrow, but Monday, kind of go over some stuff, give you some ideas. And then next week you'll be able to work on it for a little while in class. We'll do some more like kind of in-class readings of sample essays so that you can try to get a feel for it. The packet, we're not reading the packet page by page or anything like that. For the most part, it's meant to be a resource for you. So like on the back page where there's lines to fill in about judging essays and stuff, I'm not worried about you completing that yet at this point. The main thing that you're going to want to take a look at is really going to be the first 2 pages where you have your prompts. So for the assignment, there's essentially 7 options that you would have. These prompts are coming from the Common Application, which it's a fitting name. It's the most common application that gets filled out. So instead of having applications going out to 7, 8, 9, 10 different schools, you can fill out the Common App. Duke can get access to it. Syracuse can have access to it. CMU can then see it, so you don't have to like retype, resend, do all that stuff over and over and over again. Not all schools use the Common App. So if you know, for example, that the school you want to apply to does not use the Common Application, you can therefore bring in their own prompts that you would want to write about so that it would fit to it. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you the schools that do use the Common App or not. CRC would have a list, and then also online, like Common App's website would be able to have a list. But off the top of my head, I can't tell you that, hey, that one does or that one doesn't.
You don't have to look on specific schools' websites. You can like look on.
Yeah, they would have a host for it. Yeah, if the school that you're looking at doesn't, I don't believe Pitt uses the Common App. Their website, they would have like their admission process and all that kind of stuff where you then be able to get access to the prompts and whatnot. And there also could be a situation where like maybe the school that you want to go to does use the Common App, but there's a specific program, scholarship, like an honors program, a scholarship you're trying to get into. Maybe this summer you want to go to a writer's workshop at like Kenyon College and you want to do an application essay for that. Those would all be fine. The point is for you to do something that's hopefully going to be meaningful. Good chance you're going to have to use a Common App essay at some point, so this would take care of it. But if you know for sure that, hey, I want to do this program, here's their essay, by all means, we can go ahead and use that one. Just make sure you bring it into me so that I know what the requirements are. The Common App essays, it's a 650 word count limit, so if we're looking at something that's giving you more words, we don't want to penalize you for using 750 words if that was something that they were letting you do. Nothing? Okay. So if you open up the page, you can see the page numbers. There's like handwritten copies because this is a mishmash of different resources that we have. You have the Common Application essay prompts about 2/3 of the way down the page here. So on page 2, you can see numbers 1, 2, and 3. 3 continues on to the next page, and then you have 4, 5, 6, 7. We're not going to read every single one word for word, but just a couple things for you to kind of keep in mind of. Number 1 is letting you share something about interest, talent, something in your background, something that is meaningful that you feel should be included about you that you want the school to know. Now, keep in mind that there is some commentary about each prompt. Number 1, 45% of Common Application students used number 1 back from a few years ago. That's not to say you can't use number 1, but if you're going to use number 1, keep in mind that so is a whole bunch of other people. So will it give you the best opportunity to separate yourself from them? Might be a little bit tougher since there's that large amount of people. The main thing that you want to kind of do through your essay, and this sounds kind of like advertising, commercializing, is you want to brand yourself. What is it about you that makes them want you to go to their school? So in some ways you kind of brag. You are writing first person, which we don't normally kind of do. And a lot of the structural stuff that we were focusing on throughout the course of the year for an AP exam, which you'll still use, isn't really going to be too pertinent to what's going to be happening with this essay. What is it about you that does not come across in your high school transcript, your job record, sports activities that you participate in, letters of recommendation that you get from teachers or people within the community. What are things about you that you think schools should know that doesn't otherwise come across? So what you're not going to do with your Common Application essay is do a resume. I'm not trying to eliminate ideas altogether, but if a person was involved in the Boy Scouts or something, you probably wouldn't go into big detail about that because they could look at your resume, so to speak, your application materials, and they would know those things are there. Now, if there's some aspect about that experience that you still feel is very worthwhile, then by all means you can go ahead and share. Number 2, taking a look at obstacles that we encounter. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So, you could take a look at a situation that at the time was not a good moment for you, but you're able now to look at it, recognize what happened, and use that experience as a way to grow, and develop, whether it be socially, academically, something so far as, time management. You got the CHS Chem test back with that 32%, and you realize, oh, I guess I need to study now that you didn't have to do in like 7th, 8th, or 9th grade. But some kind of moment where there's a little bit of a, awakening kind of taking place. Number 3, notice this one. It says fewer than 4% of applicants elected to write about this prompt. What's the time that you questioned or challenged a belief or idea? What prompted your thinking? What was your outcome? Again, it doesn't have to be academic. It could be something intellectual, philosophical. Maybe you had a spiritual awakening while reading Siddhartha. Maybe you had a spiritual awakening in 7th grade. Whatever the case may be, you could write about one of those things. But that's one that you don't have as many people writing about. Doesn't mean that all of you should write about it, but you might have a better chance of kind of standing out, separating yourself from the pack by taking a look at that. 4, describe a problem that you've solved or you would like to solve. So this is different from number 2, where what was an obstacle, now what is something that you did solve successfully or you're looking to solve. Number 5, an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So reading Heart of Darkness, opened up so many doorways that were not there before you could take a look at. Number 6, describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? And then if none of those work, take a look at number 7, share an essay on any topic of your choice. Pardon?
Talk about grade 2.
Yeah, I don't think that would probably be the best. I mean, that was an early essay. Maybe some Slaughterhouse 5 DRQs have a little bit more content to them that we would want to go with. So number 7 is kind of like a little bit of a freebie. I don't expect that right now at this point you know exactly what it is you want to write about. It's going to be one of those things where, while you're waiting for your dinner at junior prom, maybe go, oh, write about that. Maybe it's going to hit you on Monday of next week. Who knows? But by Friday of next week, you have rough draft. I want you to be aware of the 650 word count limit, but you don't have to adhere to it for the rough draft. So if it comes in at 750, that's okay. You're not losing points on a rough draft for it not meeting that requirement. When you hear there's a maximum, people always also kind of go, what's the minimum? I would suggest that I think you'd have to be at least 450, but I'd be hoping that we'd be more in that like 550 to 650 range. 650 words is not a ton. It's not a lot by any means. So I think you can certainly, I don't want to say fill that up with like filler kind of language, but I think that would be an appropriate word count that you would have enough worthwhile content to add to it. Tuesday of next week, I will not be here. I'll be down at Pitt for a meeting. You'll have laptops, so that'll be a day that you can at least kind of draft and brainstorm some ideas. And then like on Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be going some more ideas and concepts and things like that hopefully would be helpful.
All next week will be focused on this and we'll have classes.
Right, so not all next week won't be like laptops writing it, but all next week is us focusing on this. We did Slaughterhouse 5 TWA yesterday. I have not read very many. I'm not sure when I'm going to read them yet, but they'll get read. So we're not like talking about that on Monday or anything like that. Your reading assignments for the most part are done. So we're taking about a good week plus. We're going to do some stuff with College Application Essay. That's your there's not a homework assignment popping up between now and rough draft for Friday of next week.
Yes.
No TWAs, no AP multiple choice, that you got to worry about. It's get your idea down on paper. All right. So the PowerPoint that you have here in front of you, it is on Google Classroom. If you want to refer back to it while you're working on anything, I don't expect that you're going to write everything down because we're going to be going through the slides kind of fairly quickly. It's going to be repetitive in nature. That's not meant to be punishing. That's meant to be remember this because it's important, as we're going over stuff for it. The main breakdown is today's going to be the do's, Monday's going to be the don'ts. And some of those things are going to overlap. Do this, but don't, necessarily do that. So the hope would be at least help with some ideas, things that you would write about, some structural things, things to avoid, especially so far as cliches, because that can tend to be problematic with a college essay. And, you'll be in a better position moving forward. For the time that the college folks are looking at your materials, all right, so I'm not looking for a specific unit of time, minutes, seconds, hours, but a percentage. So if your whole, pizza pie this is the amount of time that they're looking at your stuff, what percentage of time, what fraction of time do you think they are looking at your essay? So we're talking about 5%, 90%. What percentage of time do you think they spend actually reading the composition that you wrote?
15.
15%, not 50, 50, 15. Okay, 15%. 10. We're going even lower. I think 5 was the low number we had this morning. 20. It is, in a way this makes sense. I think it's also kind of surprising though to folks. It's about 33. It's about a third. And that's not meant to be, so be careful, because they're going to spend a lot of time, and it can certainly vary dependent upon some factors. If you're looking at a performance school, where there's also an art portfolio, or you're doing some kind of musical recording, this might kind of lower the percentage here. But basically, a third of the time is looking over your transcript, your application. About a third of the time is going to be looking at your recommendations, and about a third of the time is looking at what you wrote. I don't want you to be scared about what it is that you write, but I want you to look at it as an opportunity to give them more information about yourself that they might not otherwise be aware of. There is more to getting into school than simply what your GPA is going to be. More and more students, I think, are becoming fearful of, if I don't have a 4.0 or at least a 3.7, I can't get into the college of my choice. That's not necessarily true by any means. But what this gives you is an opportunity to maybe write yourself into a place where you're kind of on the bubble so far as standardized test scores with SAT classes that you've taken and grades. This might be something that could put you over the hump. It's possible that if you're on the bubble, I guess you could write yourself out. If you were to submit like 2 or 3 words, I like your school, and that's it. And then Ashley comes in and blows them away, hey, too bad for me, she just took my spot. But I don't think you need to be fearful that I'm going to ruin my application with my essay, but it certainly would be a way to enhance it. Folks look at, you look at applying to schools in a lot of different ways. There's going to be the safe schools that people are going to choose to apply to. I think I'll get in there no matter what. Some folks look at Slippery Rock that way. Beautiful campus, wonderful opportunities. Some will go to the, should I really apply to a reach school, a school that I don't think I would necessarily be able to get into? I think it's worth it in a lot of opportunities. Now, I realize a big change between you applying for college and me doing it 20 years ago. Applications cost a lot more money than they used to. Slippery Rock, I think, was free at the time. That was a big perk for applying there. I don't know if that's the case anymore. It's probably not financially wise for Lindsay to apply to 7 different schools that have like a $50 application fee. But you might be able to look at some waivers in ways that you don't have to worry about that as much. But it certainly does give you an opportunity to kind of write yourself in and maybe get into some places that you wouldn't otherwise think would be a possibility. Here's where things can get a little confusing in some ways, is talk about here, put a lot of time and effort into your introduction. This doesn't mean a lot of words because you're only looking at 650 words, but you do want to put time and effort into how effective your word choice is your sentence structure, so that every word, every sentence, every statement, every phrase counts. You folks can write 1,200 words without any issue. You've had maybe essays that you've submitted to me where in the past I've gone, I don't know, 850 words, that might not be enough for what it is that you're trying to do. In this case, you're dealing with 650. So it's not that you need to have all the main steps of a classic introduction, but you want to make sure you're doing something that is going to create some mystery, intrigue, that makes the person who wants to keep reading your essay.
So basically have like a really good hook.
I would, yes, is the initial reaction. I hate the word hook and attention, and I use them. I mean, I understand I use that attention-grabbing device, because to me, it almost makes it sound like I'm supposed to trick you into wanting to read this. I would want, like, the example down here, this is not earth-shattering, great word choice. Oh my goodness, I never could have thought about my favorite science project was a complete failure. But you know what, I'm curious enough that I want to see what happened. Did the volcano, blow up in the kitchen and ruin Thanksgiving dinner, or what? Something that's going to want to make me keep going with it. Keep in mind, or not necessarily keep in mind, but understand the person reading your essay is not the dean of admissions. It is not the English faculty, chairperson. It is most likely a 21, 22-year-old kid in cargo cutoffs wearing sandals and a t-shirt who is trying to make a little extra money for graduate school at the college. You're not writing to corduroy jacket and elbow patches, smoking a pipe professor guy. Unless you got a 22-year-old corduroy jacket, whatever. It's someone who is going to be closer in age, is going to be more in line probably with interests and things like that to you than it is to me. Now that doesn't mean to start going, text message slang and not writing out full words, but understand you're not writing to the walking thesaurus, that has been around for 85 years and is going to be judging you, critiquing you in that way. But one of the big things that's going to get mentioned later on, or I'll keep harping on, you want to make sure all your sentences count. So yes, in the way you do want a hook that's going to pull them in, because you don't want to spend 3 or 4 sentences when you could do 1 sentence. I'm not counting to be verbs and putting red X's through every single one, but if using the to be verb causes you to use an extra word and it would be more economical and efficient to just use a better verb, that would be a wise choice to do. Does every word count is basically the big thing that we're going to do. The part that folks tend to struggle with the most is keeping a narrow focus. Folks want to write about your whole entire life story or this one awesome event. Let me tell you about all great 12 things that happened on the missionary trip to Appalachia and Kentucky when we were building homes for people. You can't write about all of those things in one event or in one essay. You got to pick one aspect, a single point, and really focus on that one. If you become too comprehensive, it's an autobiography, it's going to become watered down and you're really not sharing anything. So even if you are writing about, a trip that you took, whether it was a family vacation, a missionary trip just to, us going on a college visit where you had this realization, you really just want to kind of jump to that one singular moment and start from there. You don't have to do the whole, I've been a member of this church for the last 12 years. I've always enjoyed being part of the youth group. 3 years ago, they told us the opportunity that we would be able to go to fill in the blank. You probably wasted 300 words before you actually got to what it is you need to write about. But that's tough because we're so used to give me more detail, lead into it, transition into it a little bit more, or now you're just kind of jumping into it right away. Focus on the message that you want to get across. Details are important, but don't get so involved that telling the detailed story that message ends up kind of being covered and buried by it, such as how many years you've been in the Boy Scouts or how many soccer tournaments you've gone to, and all this kind of stuff. I have 15 brothers and sisters, and life's been crazy trying to get to the bathroom at some point. Really, you only have 8, so.
And we have enough bathrooms to do it.
How many?
4.
Half. How would that be?
There's no shower. It's like a powder room. With a sink.
My color room is
Like an
about
event.
like this thing.
That's kind
I never really.
Good. I'm glad that hasn't been concern for you or anything like that.
I didn't really think about it.
But yeah, focusing on the main message and keeping it personal. Should Lindsay write about the same general topic as Noel, there still should be some differentiation between the two. Style, language, but even like reactions to things. And this is where, yes, it's going to be, Jake, we can move this. It's academic in nature, but it's more informal than that synthesis or DBQ essay that the College Board is going to be taking a look at. But it should be your story that can only come from you. Again, it kind of goes back to what is something about your life that you think they should know that otherwise isn't communicated through all those things. Now, some of you are sitting there going, I have done absolutely nothing in my life. I've never left Pennsylvania. I've never been on a plane before.
Is this you?
My life is pitiful. Well, you could write about the realization that, but you can take everyday situations and still react to some kind of realization that's happened, or there have still been obstacles along the way that you've looked at that you've had to overcome. The key is to make sure that it doesn't become so cliche that it's a message that could apply to anyone. I've enjoyed growing up in a loving family where I feel supported. I have opportunities that all people should be able to have. I enjoy going to my local public school, and I can't wait to make a difference in the world. Insert name, whatever. You could have 10 different people writing that, and it's not going to jump out to anyone because it's going to be such a generic prepackaged statement. So you want to kind of keep in mind, and you might not know yet what your major is going to be, what your career of study is going to be, but you could try to tie it into something to let you know that you want to go into law, something that's letting you know you want to go into engineering, something that's letting you know you want to go into teaching. You thought you wanted to go into teaching, and then you met me and realized I don't want anything to do with that. Those would all be things that you could certainly kind of focus on. Don't feel as though you need to have your whole life planned out, though, right now, and we're going to explain that. Some of you have no idea what your major is. Some of you think you know what your major is. You're going to change it before you apply. Some of you will pick your major, and then you're going to change it anyway after a couple semesters and switch to something else. So don't feel as though you have to have everything planned out for whatever it is that you're going to try to get across in the essay. This is a don't, but don't flatter the place either. Pitt has always held a special place in my heart. Every Saturday we get together and tailgate and watch the games, and I saw every single one of the 0-18 ACC basketball games. H2P, Hail to Pitt, Sean Nolan will not get very far. Vivid facts, specific things, details, that's going to help with proving your idea and also cutting out on the unnecessary words. So the more specific that you can be, that you jump in right away. That doesn't mean being wordy, and that doesn't mean using flowery imagery kind of writing, but using the best word is the most appropriate word. Using the most appropriate word, sentence, idea that's going to, again, communicate something about you that doesn't otherwise come across through that transcript is what you're ultimately trying to do. But prove your idea, have support for it as to how you know this ended up being a significant moment. I don't want to say life-changing, but how you knew this ended up having great impact on you, or maybe changed the way that you looked at things. By no means do you need to do this. If you end up writing about where another person comes into your essay, so you end up writing about, grandparent, sibling, English teacher, local pastor, coach, whatever, because you want to look at like an impact that he or she has had upon you, that's perfectly fine. But make sure you still write about yourself. Don't write an essay where it seems like you're trying to prove why grandma should be now accepted to Mercyhurst. Grandma's past that point, she's not worried about it most likely. So just make sure that it's you that you're really worried about getting across as to why you would be not just an asset to the school, but why you're worth, I don't want to say taking a chance on, but investing time, money, resources into as you become a wonderful adult. when it comes to being specific, and we'll get into more specific cliches later on, avoid that pre-packaged, generic kind of cliche statements. And this was kind of, the one I was talking about before. A boring and generic statement would be, I want to help people. I've gotten so much out of life through the love and guidance of my family. I feel that many individuals have not been as fortunate. Therefore, I would like to expand the lives of others. It's worded fine, but it's not really saying anything. Although it does use a semicolon, that doesn't mean it's automatic bonus points. Some think it would. This is not the finest statement ever written by any means, but it's better than the one we have up above. My mom and dad stood on plenty of sidelines during soccer practices, games, and weekend tournaments. They have braved the wind, rain, snow, and sleet. That kind of commitment is what I'd like to bring to working with fourth graders. It's basically the same amount of words. And this in itself is not going to be the essay, but it does establish a context. I got a career possibility here that I'm looking at, elementary teachers. I do have specific details with the soccer practices, games, weekend tournaments, braving the elements, specifically wind, rain, snow, and sleet. You could argue that sounds a little cliche so far as what post-service does and whatnot with the weather. But compared to the first one, I have more details. It's more specific. It's at least starting to get a little bit more of me across. Any questions? Know your subject. So you're doing Common App. So you could apply to multiple schools. If you know you're looking at a specific program, you would want to make sure that the university that you're looking at does offer the program. So international business at Syracuse wouldn't work if they don't offer the program. Also be aware of who you're applying to based on the prompts. If you were going to look at number 3, so this is the one where fewer than 4% of applicants elected to write about. Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? Let's say, for example, that I'm going to write about a religious self-realization, kind of aha moment that a person had. Be careful if you're writing to Teal, Grove City, Geneva, Duquesne, Mercyhurst, where you have schools that have religious affiliations. I'm not saying the topic would not work, but if you are looking at something that you think a conservative religious school might go, I don't know, that might not be the best thing for you then to write about to that school. And you could do separate essays for different schools, you just have to make sure you keep yourself organized. Don't send Pitt your Penn State essay and vice versa. Other schools that don't use the Common App, they also tend to know what other schools ask for. So that if Jake were to write an essay for a particular school and then send it out to others, they'll kind of go, this seems a lot like someone else's. You're just trying to save time by not writing multiple essays. Now, you don't have to worry about, is the person I'm writing to going to be a male or a female? Are they going to be a Republican or a Democrat? That type of stuff I wouldn't worry about. But if the subject matter, if the content ends up going maybe against some of the tenets or the principal beliefs that school is trying to encourage into its student body, that could be a bit of a concern that could be taking place. So just be aware of it. Doesn't mean that you have to completely change everything, but certainly at least be aware of subject, who you're going to, programs, all that kind of stuff. You have a lot of students try to turn that 650-word essay into an autobiography. Do make sure then that you're answering the question. This goes back to make sure every sentence in your essay exists solely to answer whatever question you're looking at. So is this pertinent to the point that I'm trying to get across? If the answer is no, you're probably eliminating that sentence and saving the words for stuff later on or replacing it with something else. But when everything is all said and done, oops, wrong way, you want to make sure, does every sentence, every phrase, every word, is it essentially crucial to the essay? My guess is this is probably the point, the details, or at least the wording, along with maintaining the focus that you're going to have to keep an eye on the most and be aware of. I'll say this on Monday, don't make stuff up.
That would be really cool, though. Like, I could tell mine as a volunteer firefighter to do that loud.
I wouldn't risk it. chances are, and I mean, is a person going to be able to get 100% of the time? No. You might end up writing something truthful that they're going, no way did this happen. This kid's completely making it up. But the person who is reading all these essays, or the people, it's not like one person at one school was reading, 10,000 applicants that are coming in. They're probably reading several hundred a day. And you start to be able to pick up on this seems sincere, this doesn't. So there's no reason to risk trying to exaggerate something or to make it sound more appealing than what really happened. Plus, have the confidence in the sense of, I'm pretty good. They want me. I don't need to switch, events or facts or whatnot, about me. Transitions can be a nice way to kind of add variety. Also, sentence structure, mixing up some things with simple, compound, complex would be a good idea. Within any given paragraph, your paragraph count is going to vary wildly. None of you are going to be doing like 6-paragraph essays because you simply don't have the words for it. Most likely, you're probably looking around 3, but that's not even going to be like an intro, body, and conclusion. You could probably just end up having 2 or 3 where an intro or conclusion are kind of embedded into the main points that you're looking at. You don't want to write like one article, I'd say 1 block text, but you're probably looking around 3 paragraphs total. Certainly, you're not going into 5-paragraph mode or anything like that. You don't want Mrs. Washington coming after you. If I let her know that Kobe did 5 paragraphs.
Neither state.
Transitions are not also simply just nevertheless, however, consequently, furthermore. A lot of us tend to rely upon 1 or 2 transition words. Remember, when you're typing, there is that Control F feature where you can find a word. So if you type in however and 27 highlights pop up, you're probably overusing that word. So just recognize that you might fall into traps of certain types of words that you use. I gave you a list a while back of a lot of different subordinating conjunctions and whatnot. That might be something to kind of take a look at too, to help with sentence structure and also some different types of transitions that you'd be able to use. Active verbs, I said I'm not like docking points for to be, but overuse of the passive voice can certainly kind of make it seem flat, uninteresting. Active voice, shorter, more direct. So as opposed to the tray of food was dropped by the waiter, and we got that lovely to be verb, the waiter dropped the tray of food. Not the most exciting sentence in the world, but it puts an emphasis on verbs that you could certainly get across. All right. Conclusion, it's your last chance to persuade, impress the admission officers or the readers. So make it interesting so that there is a long-lasting impression. You want to avoid summarizing what it was that you were simply just stating, but leave something with you. The best essay is the one that they remember for the day, because that's going to go in the good pile. There's going to be a pile of essays where, number 1, they're going to go Byron lied, or they plagiarized, at which point you don't get accepted. There are essays for everything out there. I wish I didn't have you turn this one in to turn it in, but based on past experiences, you need to turn in your college essay to turn it in. It's really great when the turn it in essay that is about honesty and truthfulness is the one that comes back with that like 75% plagiarized meter. And then I go, oh well. But they're going to have that pile, which hopefully is not very
There's
big.
an accent.
Their largest pile is probably going to be meh. They didn't do anything to help. They didn't do anything to hurt. It was just an essay. The pile you want to be is the one that they remember. The one that there was something about it that now they got better insight into who you are and as to why you should be kind of like a member of their family at the college level. So you don't have a homework assignment for Monday, but I would look through those prompts, think about which one maybe works best for you, what events can you think about. Again, this doesn't have to be life-changing. It could be family vacation, camping. It could be something about a work experience that would seem rather mundane, but in the end ended up kind of having some kind of impact with you. A good thing to write about are events that have happened that you now are going to use and keep in mind as you shape the rest of your life. So those can be simple things to remember. Friday next week is rough draft. Following Friday, 2 weeks from today, the 27th, will be when we're all done final count.
26 for extra.
26 for extra credit, yeah, we'll reinforce, and then you'll get the rubric next week, so you know what you're looking at. 50 points, but it's not that AP 7+, 8- kind of scale.
Fine.